one thing, although this was filmed on a Friday afternoon, so the students had actually left site at that point. But what I would, if you were here, I think what I'd really like to get across is that it's a very calm, environment. It's got a a very sort of safe and productive, positive feeling, and that's the one thing that won't sort of come across from the video as much as it would if you were on site. But hopefully it'll give you a chance to have a look at the facilities that we do have here. We've actually added to these facilities in the last 12 months. We've got a new part to our education block, which brings in an IT suite and a new science classroom, as well as some new facilities for the students, toilets, and a PE changing room as well. So there's a few changes since this video's been made, but hopefully it'll give you a sense of the school and the environment in which we're working in at the minute.
Yeah, that was quite a significant investment, so £1.5 million that we used to extend that because of the increase in student numbers, because we were, that's about sort of 82 years ago, sort of 55 to 60 students, and we're now sat on sort of 72 currently. So that's been a part of our growth.
Okay, and just we'll come back to it later, but you can see the big diagram at the back of Rob and Chris. That's our quality of life framework, and that is very, very essential in terms of understanding our ethos, culture, and how we work here. And we can pick up on any questions about that after we've seen the films. Okay, is Dean ready to get the cameras going on the film?
Yep, we're mute. Okay.
Let's go for it.
Hello and welcome to Swaicliffe Park School. My name is Chris Heslop. I'm one of the assistant principals at the school, and I'm going to give you a short guided tour. The first thing I'd like to draw your attention to is the fantastic location of Swaicliffe Park School. We're set in the Oxfordshire countryside with extensive grounds which help to create a calm and peaceful environment for our students. In addition to that, it's a fantastic facility for those students to use. So this is one of our Key Stage 3 classrooms. Within Key Stage 3 at Swaicliffe Park School, we have 4 tutor groups of 6 students. You can see that the room is set up for the 6 students. We've got our 6 student desks. We've got our teacher desk. We've got our interactive whiteboard. The class of 6 are supported by 2 members of staff, the teacher and the tutor LSA, who works with them across the curriculum. If you look around the classroom, you can see the desks are the same. However, the chairs are very different. We've got 4 students in this particular group who like to sit on the orange chairs here, but we've got one of our students likes a chair that rocks back and forward a little to give them that sensory input. And we've got another student who likes a chair which moves a little more side to side, again, for their sensory input. At the back of the classroom, we've got one student in this class who likes to use a standing up desk. So these individual needs can be incorporated into our approach. The reason why we do that is to bring down any barriers that the students have so as they can concentrate on their learning and make that academic progress, which we want them to do. So round here, we have the Key Stage 3 quiet rooms. We put 3 quiet rooms in during the last academic year. And the idea of these spaces is to give the students an area which they can go to either work quietly, because maybe they're finding the classroom environment just a little bit noisy. It also gives them an area to go to work with a member of staff, maybe on a literacy intervention or a numeracy intervention, where they can have some peace and quiet and they wouldn't be disturbing others. And they're also great if students are struggling maybe a little bit with their emotional regulation. It gives them a space where they can go, they can be with a member of staff, where they can have a conversation, or they can just have some quiet time alone. Since we put them in, they've been really well used. We've put quite big windows into the quiet rooms, and we've also put windows and doors in the back of our Key Stage 3 classrooms, which means the rooms are accessible from those classrooms, but it also means that students can work independently in these areas and the staff can keep an eye on them from the classroom if they want to work independently. This is a Key Stage 4 classroom. First thing to draw your attention to is the furniture, which is bigger than the Key Stage 3 furniture to meet the needs of our older students. I think it's also worth noting, you'll notice that the carpet in this classroom is the same as the carpet in the Key Stage 3 classroom. The wall colours are the same. The lighting is the same. We've got the interactive whiteboard, which is the same, because we're trying to create that consistent environment across the school, because we feel that that's in the best interest of our students and is going to help them feel comfortable wherever they move to in the school. Another point to mention is in every classroom we've got laptops available for the students, because some of our students find recording their work on a laptop much more effective than recording their work by handwriting. We'll always support students to develop their handwriting, but there's no pressure on them to write if they find that difficult. A real strength of the curriculum at Swaycliffe Park School is the range of subjects that we offer. Great example in this corridor here, where we've got the design technology workshop, the food technology kitchen, and the science lab. At the core of everything we do is quality of life. The school have developed a quality of life programme to help our students and their families during the time that they're with school, and then hopefully that will follow through for the rest of their lives. When they are at school, there's 4 key areas that we're focused on at all times: communication, independence, self-management, and achievement. And throughout the students' time at the school, they'll always be working to develop their skills in each of those areas. At Swaycliffe Park School, we've got a very strong therapy team. We've got 3 speech and language therapists, 3 occupational therapists, 2 clinical psychologists, and 2 clinical psychology assistants. Our approach in the school is to embed our therapy team into everything we do. So that means that their offices are within the education block. They're working with the students on a daily basis, both in group sessions and individually, just depending on students' needs. This is our occupational therapy room, which is used by our 3 occupational therapists when they're working individually with the students on their caseload. This is the gym. It's a very well-used space in the school. During the school day, it's used for PE lessons. It's also used at break time and at lunchtime for sporting activities. In the evening time, again, a range of different sports take place in here. And then, in addition to that, it's used for some of our bigger events during the school year. This is the cafe, and I might be biased, but I don't think there's better school food being served anywhere in the country. This is our Expressive Arts building, where our music lessons take place, both group sessions and individual lessons, and it proves really popular with our students. A really important area for the school over the past 2 years has been the development of our sixth form centre. Our numbers in sixth form have risen. 2 years ago we had 20 students, and now we've got nearly 30 students. So in keeping with the rest of our approach at Swaycliffe Park School, which is small transitions all the time, we've created the sixth form centre away from the main education block to give the sixth form students that sense that they are growing up and they are going to be treated slightly differently. Here inside the sixth form centre, the students have access to a range of social areas, to kitchen facilities, and also to classrooms and workspaces. Welcome to one of the residential houses at Swaycliffe Park School. This is the lounge area where the students can relax before school, after school, and also at the weekends. Each residential house has a kitchen like this. They are important social areas for the group, and it's also where they eat their breakfast, their lunch, and their dinner. In addition to that, the kitchen also provides a great opportunity to help the students develop their independent skills, whether that's cooking, laundry, or being part of a team who keep the kitchen clean and get it set up ready for mealtime. All residential students at Swaycliffe Park School have their own bedroom with ensuite bathroom. At the school we recognise how important a student's bedroom is to them, and we really encourage the students to make that space their own, so as to feel at home when they're away from home. That is the end of the tour. I hope that you've enjoyed having a look around Swaycliffe Park, and I hope that the tour has given you a sense of what life is like at the school. If you've got any further questions or you would like any more information, please don't hesitate to get in touch with our admissions team. Their contact details can be found on the website.
Okay, hope everybody was able to see that okay, and it gave you a little flavour of what the environment looks like. Obviously not as detailed as we like, and I'm sure those of you who might be interested in residential provision might have some more questions to ask about that. We're going to show you a little animation in a moment just to back that up. At the end, we'll give you the YouTube address because we've got a YouTube channel with a number of animations covering the admissions process. But one of the things we're very conscious of doing is helping families and young people understand how we work in school. And we know that all schools have policy documents, but they're usually quite long and dry documents, which is not the most conducive to be able to get the information you want. So we've produced a series of animations on safeguarding, online safety, medical issues, fire evacuation, and we've got a number more in the pipeline. There's one on our referrals process, which we think will be helpful for you because it'll give you a sense of all the component parts of the process, and you'll get an understanding of why it takes sometimes a bit longer than everybody might wish. But it's all done to make sure that we're really confident we can do the best job for you as a family and your son, and you're confident that you're making the right decision because this is such a big decision for you as well. And so we've got to respect all the referral information and make sure that everything's in place before we start. So we may ask you for further information if we haven't got enough. We may ask you to say, is there any more up-to-date information? And it's really important that we're always very honest with each other throughout this process. So if we don't have all the information, we're not going to make good decisions for you. And that's why we take the tack we do. So we'll let you enjoy this little animation. They're very nice. It's quite short. I think it's about 5 minutes. And then we'll catch up after that. Okay? Enjoy.
Welcome to our short film about how the admission process works at Swaycliffe Park. First of all, we thought it would be important for you to know some basic information about the school. Like the fact that we offer both residential and day places to boys who have a confirmed diagnosis of autism spectrum condition. All of the boys are between 10 and 19 years old, of average cognitive ability, and have an education, health and care plan. If you look at our website, you will see that we have developed a quality of life approach. This is based on listening to student and family voice to help to identify and address the issues of importance to them. We are very lucky that our beautiful school is set in the lovely village of Swaycliffe near Banbury in the Oxfordshire countryside, and all of our buildings and facilities are on a 22-acre site, which includes playing fields, woods and even a lake. We love it here. Here are some helpful things to know about applying for a place at Swaycliffe. Unfortunately, the process can take quite a long time, so you will need to be patient. It might help you to know that we receive over 200 inquiries for placement every year, and it takes time to review all the requests and reports. It is very difficult to put an exact timescale on it as it depends on many factors, including time of year, how many referrals are being reviewed, and whether your local authority is supporting your application. We make sure our process is very thorough, so we only admit students who are well suited to how we work. We are really confident we can do a great job for the boys and their families. It is helpful if you can work as collaboratively as possible with your local authority, as this can speed up the process. However, you need to be prepared that they might not agree with your request for an EHCP or a placement in a specialist school. It is also important to know that having an EHCP does not necessarily mean they will support a school placement with us. Always ask them what your local options are and go and see them, even if you don't think that they'll be appropriate. The good news is that we offer places throughout the school year and in different year groups, depending on where spare places are available. So how does the admissions process work? There are 6 stages to our admissions process, which we will help guide you through. The process is designed to ensure everyone is happy at each point along the way. There are options for you or the school to withdraw if either of us is not sure that a placement would be right. Stage 1. You need to persuade your local authority to write to us, asking if we would consider offering your son a place at Swaycliffe. He will need to have an EHCP for them to do this. Unfortunately, there is very little that we can do until the plan is in place and we receive the letter. Stage 2. When we receive this consultation letter and all the supporting reports, we will review them and respond to the local authority with an indication of whether we might be a suitable school. We will try to do this within 15 days, if possible. Stage 3. If we think we can help, we will arrange for you and your son to have an interview with our lead clinical psychologist. This meeting will be online and include questions which help us to know that your son will be safe at Swaycliffe and will not endanger the safety, health or learning of any of our existing students. It is really important that you share information with us so that together we can make safe decisions for everyone. Stage 4. If everyone is happy with the outcome of the interview, we will arrange for you and your son to come and have a tour of the school and meet some staff, including the lead on referrals and the principal. You will be able to see all the classrooms, social areas and our beautiful grounds. You'll also have the chance to meet some of our current students. And if you're looking for a residential place, we'll also show you what our bedrooms look like. Stage 5. If everyone is happy with the outcome of the school tour, we will arrange for your son to come back again and spend 3 days with us. We call this an assessment visit. To help us prepare for the visit, we will ask you and your son to provide us with some additional information, including completing a quality of life questionnaire. We'll use this to write a pen portrait and plan the visit. Stage 6. Following the assessment visit, we will gather up feedback from all relevant staff and write a report. This will include either the offer of a place or the reasons why we do not feel it will be the right thing to do. We will share it with you and your local authority. We hope you have found this short animation to be helpful. You can also find more valuable information on our website or on the Swaycliffe Park YouTube channel. You might also want to contact the school to ask about joining the next prospective parents' afternoon via email. If it is independent advice you are looking for about specialist school placements, you can also look at the Good Schools Guide or get in touch with the IPSEA, who can provide free guidance to families. All inquiries about school admissions should be made to admissions@swaycliffepark.co.uk. This is also the email address should you wish to inquire about joining the next prospective parents' afternoon. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
Okay. I'm not sure if we need to know why your house is cold. I think we all know about that. We hope that everybody enjoyed that and it gave you a little bit of an insight into the process and what we have to do at our end and the constraints that we're under, as well as what we need from all of you. This is very much a partnership going through this part of the process. And that really underpins how we like to work with our families throughout their journey. And if you look at the quality of life framework, you'll see that actually half of it is divided into what we do for our boys, and half of it is divided into what we do for our families and how we work with families. And that's really at the essence of our quality of life approach. And that's based around Emily Gardner's research, which talks about young people being, you know, an integral part of a family. So whatever happens in a family has an impact on a young person and vice versa. So if there are things going on at home that we don't know about, we might be focusing on the wrong things or having the wrong expectations of young people. And so we need to see how that's going. We're also mindful that sometimes there is an impact of young people within the family, and we need to know what that is, because it's through that level of collaboration that we can get the right areas of focus that will help us improve the quality of life outcomes for young people and for you as families. Okay, well, hopefully that's stimulated a bit of thinking and some questions. I can't see the hands up on the questions here, but hopefully someone at school can, and we'll just take them in the order that they come in, and we'll do our very, very best to answer them. Okay.
Okay, Dean, do you want to, who
Is it Anne or Tribunal Anne?
Anne Crosby?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yep.
Yeah, apologies. I appear to have come through my work. Can I just clarify? I am a tribunal member, but nothing to do with the Special Needs Tribunal, and I'm here in a personal capacity.
Okay.
So I just want to put that straight. But I did have a question that I'd like to ask. So I didn't, if you just jumped to me because you saw tribunal and thought, oh, somebody's watching. I'm not. It's not this tribunal. It's in the tribunals.
We were a little bit worried when we saw that, but thank you for.
I know.
I'm
I'm on my work, but I'm on my work laptop, so I do apologise. And I saw it come up myself and thought, oh no, how do I get out of that? Right. The question I had was around residential, please. One of the things I'm trying to understand is, in my particular circumstances, I'm not sure the local authority would approve transport. And they may well say, you know, for example, you've either got to move closer to the school, but we're not going to fund boarding. So my question was, if the local authority is prepared to fund a placement, but not boarding, suggesting that it is sufficiently close to travel, from a sensory perspective, I think over an hour is too far, personally. Is the parent allowed to top up and pay the residential provision, or is that a strict no-no?
Right.
That's a corker to kick off with, isn't it?
I'm sorry, but it was written down on my list as something that we might consider.
Do you want me to go for that one, Kieran?
You go and I'll chip in with anything else.
I think the first thing we need to recognise is that the fees to come to a school like this are eye-wateringly high. I don't really want to share the fees here now because there's things about price fixing and things like that. So the top up is, let's just say tens of thousands to top that up. We're not talking about a small amount of money. I think we have one student who privately funds their placement, and we have one student who currently tops up their placement from a day to a residential fee, and they're doing it for a year because they're using that sort of for preparation in their final year of school to help them be able to manage university, and that's something the family have decided to do. I think we do have some really strong sort of ethics around this type of thing, where we don't want families sort of potentially paying for something for a short period of time and then challenging the local authority, because that ends up particularly messy in tribunal. If somebody is going to say that they pay, we expect them to be able to, that to be a commitment, because actually you need to get in the queue and you need to be in a list of people. I think for 99% of people here, it wouldn't be an option anyway, so I'm sorry for that at this point. But yeah, so I think everything is possible, but there would be, we need to talk in detail about that and how that would work. Kieran, is that?
Yes, and I think probably worth adding, if you think a residential placement is the right way forward, you need to build a case about the benefits of a working day curriculum and talking about what's the added value of a residential place other than it's just slightly too far in the car. I think there's a lot of strength in that. There are cases which do go to tribunal where we are the only school and the right school, and the distance is too far too far to travel on a day basis, and then the judge may order a residential placement on that basis. But the best way is to try and justify the need for the added benefit of a residential placement at the outset, if you think that is what you want. But we appreciate that's not what everybody wants.
No.
I think and the argument, and I think there's some DfE guidance, and I'm not sure what the latest one is, but the last one I saw through a tribunal was anything under an hour and a half was deemed reasonable.
Yes, we're right on that. We're right on that borderline, okay. Which is so. I was looking at it from a cost-effective perspective in terms of taxis there and back, but that's why I thought I'd just inquire if it had ever been that somebody had sort of topped up and done the residential, because but like you say, it's it'd be interesting to try and look at the waking day. The waking day curriculum is a challenging one, though. I'm sure many are aware of that. It's a difficult one, but thank you. I think you've answered my question that it's a potential, but not ideal.
Thanks very much for getting us off the mark. Okay, who's going to follow next?
Al Bogdanovsky.
Al.
Yeah, hi. So I've got a couple of questions, but they're probably quite quick. One is you do the assessment that you say you got a 3-day assessment. Does that have to be on? Does that the child have to stay with you the entire time, or can they do that as a sort of day in and out?
Yeah. So Sorry, Al, I can answer that one first if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, so in terms of the 3-day assessment visit, you know, we've got, depending on what type of placement you are seeking, would determine the type of assessment visit. So if it's a day placement that you're looking for, the assessment visit would be on 3 consecutive days. If it's a residential placement, it would be on.
Okay, so it just matches basically.
Yeah, it matches. It matches up to that, because we want to, for yourselves, for the young person and for the family, they want to get a sense of whether or not, you know, the residential provision is going to work well for them, and they're going to, you know, respond well to that environment. And, you know, likewise if it's a day placement.
I think it's really important to say that the assessment is really important for both sides of the process. It's really important for the families. It's really important for the school. We know that young people who respond really well to this environment manage the assessment. I mean, with lots of support and lots of things put in place, the assessment, you know, they respond to the environment, they come on assessment. The young people who struggle in the assessment, it can sometimes be that they're not so successful if they're admitted into the school, and that can mean not such a successful placement for the family as well. So it's really important that we try and.
I think just building on that, Rob, I think the student being able to access our provision over 3 consecutive days is a very good indicator as to whether or not they're ready for a placement with us. I think that looking back, we have very few placements that don't succeed in the long term, but in the past 2 years, we've had 2 placements which haven't been sustained, and both of those were students who were not able to access the 3-day assessment visit, but the local authority and the school and parents and the young person sort of worked together, and we used a transition period to try and help them integrate themselves into the school, but it wasn't successful. So I think that 3-day assessment visit is a really good marker as to whether or not you know, our placement would be viable in the long term.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sort of brings me into a sort of follow-up question, I guess. You said at the beginning you wouldn't sort of tackle specific questions about people's individual needs for their kids, which makes sense. But what's the vehicle for us discussing that with you? Because obviously you've got loads of people applying and loads of sort of complex different needs for children. So how do we sort of investigate further that?
Yeah, so I think, Al, if there's anything specific that you want to discuss, if you get in touch with the school, then I'd be happy to give you a call back.
Okay.
Would that be through the admissions email address?
Yeah, if you approach us through the admissions email address, and then that'll come through to myself, and then I can get in touch and we can organise a convenient time to speak. Okay.
That's good. Seeing as mine are so quick, can I throw a last one in?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm doing easy ones for you. This is one my wife's asked me to ask, actually, because she can't be on. But obviously the process is different for all the different boroughs. So depending on who, you know, which borough you're working with, depends on how how they might interact with you guys. Is there any way that we might be able to just sort of meet or discuss with other people from our borough or a similar borough that have gone through the application process? Is there any way you guys could facilitate like introductions like that?
We definitely can, and if you're get in touch, and that we sort of think it's going to work for everybody, we can definitely try and find another parent that you can chat to, and if we can match that up within the same borough, of course, we'll definitely try and do that. And we do often pair parents up with people. It probably means that if you're successful and you join the school, you might be asked to do the same further down the line.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
Do you see what I mean? But yeah, that's definitely something we can try and facilitate.
Perfect. I'll hand the baton on.
Thank you. Who have we got next, Rob?
So Dean, who have we got?
Sue and Stephen.
Sue and Stephen.
Hi, I'm wondering if you can support a child with selective mutism. Do you want me to elaborate?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so my son, he only speaks to myself, my wife, my parents, and a couple of other people in his immediate family. And in school, he doesn't communicate at all verbally.
Okay, I think that probably might be one that we would need to look at, perhaps outside the scope of this, because there's obviously a lot going on there that we would want to delve into. And I think there's probably too many questions we might have around that to be able to answer in a meaningful way this afternoon. So if that's okay, if we do the same as Alan, get in touch through the email address, we'll follow that up on an individual basis, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah,
Yep.
hi. Yeah, just a couple of questions really. I'm looking at, some different specialist schools at the moment. For my son, I'm still a bit confused about the whole admissions and application for it, because one I was looking at seems to be I have to apply, sort of send the HCP in myself and send it into them to look at to see whether the school would be suitable. But then from watching your thing, it seems almost like the local authority need to sort of do that. So I don't know if you could just clarify that.
Sure. I think that there are two things here. Sometimes local authorities are very much working with families, and there's an agreement that actually it's a specialist placement that's required. And so under those circumstances, the local authority will write directly to us and say, this young person, we're looking for a place for him. Will you have a look at all the referral information? However, unfortunately, we know that's not always the case. And sometimes, these discussions can be quite long and protracted. And sometimes parents are going, we want to get a sense of whether or not you would consider our son for a place, because we don't want to spend 3 months, 6 months, 8 months doing this for you to say no when we've got the local authority on board. So under those circumstances, we can have a look at paperwork to give you a rough, yeah, we probably would proceed with this one, or definitely not. And then that allows you to get on with your search around for other schools. But the only thing I would say is, I mean, he hides it well, but the pile of papers on Chris's desk is ever accumulating, and after today it'll be even higher. So it's just about being patient, and what we have to do is to prioritize those that come in through the local authority first. Sorry, I've just got someone at the door.
While we're waiting, I just wanted to ask actually a question about the, it being a same-sex school, because that was one of my sort of concerns slightly, and having a child that's been through mainstream, although they seem to think yes, he definitely needs a level, and even the school feel he's going to need a specialist for secondary, because he has so much support in the mainstream to get where he is. But he's been obviously with girls, and then just what your experiences of that. You obviously have children come from a mainstream primary, I presume, that go into same-sex school, and how that affects or anything. Will they just settle into that okay?
Yeah, I mean, we don't see that as being very much of a problem. Certainly a lot of the work that we do is building independent skills and trying to get our students, our boys, out into the community doing things that you would expect any young person to do. I don't see it as a negative. We make sure that we try and cover those things off, and we give the opportunities to meet boys, girls, whatever our students want to do. I don't see it as being a problem. It's not been something that's caused us issues.
Or I think the young people, any issues in particular. We've got some boys who are in sixth form and they're off doing college placements, and they're getting girlfriends, and people have girlfriends at home and all those types of things. I think, the young people are having a different experience to the mainstream experience, and I think they're all very grateful that they're able to feel so at home and be able to access their learning and be able to be in an environment that they feel really, really comfortable in, and make progress, not just academically. That's back to our four whys with their communication and their self-management and their independence, and they feel less anxious and all those things. I think that gives them actually a better opportunity to.
And it's something that those, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever relationships are tricky. And actually we're really well placed with our staff team, very experienced with our speech and language therapists and all the stuff that goes on in the school to support how to do that in a positive way. And certainly lots of our boys have benefited from, right, you've got yourself a date. How are we going to do this? What's it going to be like? What are you going to say? How's that going to end? So you know, that's actually a positive of the school, that we have those facilities and expertise to help young people.
I can't give any of that advice, I'm afraid. I'm useless at that.
We're still working.
Still-
We're still working.
I'm
Yeah,
having lots of speech.
I
on
wouldn't
that.
be any good with it either, I don't think.
Yeah. But I do think there is also, it doesn't feel like your typical single sex boys' school or girls' school, where the staffing is very, and I don't know the percentage, I'm afraid, but I think there's more female staff than male staff. I know that there's a special school girls' special school we do some work with down in Surrey, and they've got one male member of staff, and it's a girls' school and it's all female staff. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, you've got good mix.
So it doesn't feel like a private school. It doesn't feel like a private residential school. It feels like a community with that things, and young people are nipping off to do scouts and play football and do things, and be involved, go rock climbing, and the other people in the rock climbing group are girls. Do you see what I mean? So it doesn't feel like there's a sort of isolation from that sort of mixed education. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, that's great, thanks. And just one very quick one. We actually live very close to you, actually. So do you think the local authority look at Great Geographical when they're looking to place a child, if they say, yes, this child needs specialists? Do you think that goes in your advantage?
Unfortunately, they look at the fees.
Yeah.
And they'll look at, we work well with Oxfordshire as our largest referring authority, and Bucks, Warwickshire and Northampton that are quite local to us. But we totally understand why they don't want to place with us. But they love what we do. They're very happy with all the placements they've got, but they've got severe financial constraints themselves. So if they can find a more cost-effective option somewhere else, that's what they'll look for first.
I think Oxfordshire have got 26, 27 students with us currently, so it's not that they won't place with us. And I think we're quite ethical, and the local authority quite like that, because we are a proper charity, and what comes in gets spent on the young people, and it's what it costs to have this sort of provision. I'm paid on the spreadsheet that's calculated for head teachers, and Rob's paid on that, and there isn't any profit taken out, and we're in a really fortunate position as a charity where we don't have any debts and we own everything. So what we take from the local authorities is exactly what it costs to have a class of 6, exactly what it costs to have an LSA there, exactly what it costs to have that type of education in place. We're not the Cambion group that's then taking 15% off the top for shareholders and all those types of things. So I think the local authorities do appreciate that, and they know that if they set this, if they needed the young people needed this provision, and they set a school up like this, they'd have to, number one, set it up and build it and pay for it to be built, and then it would cost the same to run.
Yeah.
Because they work on all those pay scales and all those things as well. So that is slightly in our favour and works well sometimes with tribunal. But I think we've talked about the referral process and things. You do have to have a level of resilience and determination to sort of make this, to get a young person into a setting like this quite often. Like Kieran said, sometimes the local authorities really do work with families. Other times you do have to be prepared to have quite a battle with them to get that over the line.
Yeah.
And I think it's a battle that all of our families are so pleased they've had. Do you see what I mean?
You're prepared to take it. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where that assessment process and just checking things as we go along the line, because if you had that battle, you need to know that it's right, and that what we're saying and what you're saying is it's going to work, because you don't want to go through that and it not still be quite what you were looking for. So I think it's a two-way thing. But we've got 72 young people out there, and I think all of the families are very happy. The Ofsted inspections check our families' views, and we know that they're outstanding. We've got our advanced autism accreditation. We've got all those things which all show that the work we're doing, those young people, everybody's very, very happy with, and it's making really good progress. So I think it's a battle worth having if we do that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Rob, just before the next question, just like to share the good news that my new kettle's arrived.
Oh, great.
Okay, that's great.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes everybody happy, and they're glad they tuned in for that.
That's brilliant news. Yeah. We're just hoping the sciatica clears up, because we can't put with you jiggling around there for much longer. Right. Okay. So is it Kate next, Dean?
Katie Young. Yeah.
Katie Young.
Hi. There's a couple of questions already been covered, which were really useful. In particular, having a chat with Chris beforehand, and having a local parent that's already in the same. One of my concerns is how do we persuade the LEA to support us on this, because obviously they really don't want to support us on most of it, which is cost related, I understand. So I've started the process really early, I'm guessing, compared to everybody else on here, but my son has only just gone into year 5, so I'm a year ahead. I assume he can't come to you anyway until 2024.
You can start in year 6.
Oh, he can start in year 6?
Yes, we have year 6 students, yeah.
Okay, so you would still say if we start the process now, then that's not starting too early, because I know it's slower in terms
No,
of...
not at all. I think you have to start it now if you're thinking about year 6, because it'll take you that amount of time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was initially thinking actually of year 7, but year 6 obviously would be massively beneficial, even if you didn't come at the start of year 6 and it ended up being a little bit later for me. Obviously, the sooner the better. So that's fine. I feel better now that I know I'm not far too early.
Yeah, I think it's only,
go on, sorry, Rob.
Yeah, I think it's only fair to say the earlier you start, the more you'll learn, and potentially you'll be able to sort of work for the annual review cycle in year 5. And if you're looking for year 7, lots of young people manage quite well in primary school because it's the familiarity and just all those types of things. I think you may, and I'm sorry to say this, and I know it's putting strain on families and costs are tight at the moment. Legal support sometimes is really quite important to help do that. You might be lucky or a real resilience to read up on that and use organisations like IPSI that we talked about in the video and those types of things to try and get that in place. But it's it's the earlier you start, the better.
Yeah.
And the earlier, and there's some things we can talk to you about along the way, which, discounting the local offer, going and looking at things that local authority are suggesting, not just saying I'm not going, I only want this, being very open and going and then talking to those settings and understanding potentially why they couldn't do it. Do you see what I mean? And
yeah, so I can build why you're the only one that really is suitable.
Yeah. I think as well, just bear in mind that a lot of schools will be under pressure to say we can meet needs.
Yeah.
Even if, and I think you have to delve below that and go, what's your track record? How do you go about it? Tell me exactly how you do this. What's the training that the staff have? What arrangements would be put in place? What would happen if this was the case? Have you reviewed the papers? Tell me how you do this, and really hold them to account. Because quite often, if schools start to feel a little bit hot under the collar with that, it might change their mind about saying yes. Because if you go to a tribunal and the local school says, yes, we can meet need, that your job is much harder. What you need is those local schools, if they can't meet need, to be able to say they can't meet need. And that's why you need to build so much time into the process, because you might need to get some reports, maybe speech and language or OT or whatever, psychology. It may take you 3 months to get those reports together because of just the amount of time it takes to get those organised. Then you've got to have those reports in advance of your tribunal date, because you've got to submit evidence to the tribunal well in advance of the tribunal itself. So you don't want to leave yourself short on time. So the earlier you can have your annual review in year 5, and you need to mention what are the options at this annual review in year 5, so that you can start the transition planning process. Because whilst many youngsters are okay in primary in year 6, the reason why we dropped from year 7 to year 6 was because many were falling out of school, and that's not helpful in the build up to the transfer into secondary. So I think getting that timeline right and being very open and honest at that annual review, saying we're looking at all the options. What options are you telling us are there? We're going to follow everything up. Let's do this collaboratively. But if there isn't anything there, we'll be looking out of county.
Mm-hmm.
I think local authorities, and we do have sympathy, under huge financial strain. Do you see what I mean? And they're sometimes just pushing things down the line because it saves another term's fees or another term's fees. And sometimes, even though when they know that they haven't got an alternative and they haven't got a suitable placement, sometimes saying we'll go to tribunal pushes it another 4 months down the line. Do you see what I mean? And that's another X amount of pounds saved. Do you see what I mean? So I think you sort of, your 3 scenarios are your local authority acknowledge it, consult with us, place with us. Do you see what I mean? Through the process, it's a parental preference, and there's dialogue and pushing and shoving probably to get there, and then the third bit is the sort of full legal route. And I think, you know, you have to be prepared in some ways for the full legal route, and hopefully it's less more, and we get a combination of all three. Do you see what I mean? Not everything's tribunal, not everything's local authority referral. Some of them are done because the local authority acknowledge they need to do some things. You see what I mean? And it's really three of those sort of routes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, really good. Yeah, thank you very much.
Any more for any more?
Guy.
Yes, sorry, my hand was up, but it's gone again, I think. Has it?
I think still, are we on Guy still, Guy?
Oh, yes. Hi.
I think it might be your, you've got Guy Hardcastle and...
Yeah, I'm Steph.
Steph, sorry, Steph, thank you. Yep.
Hi. I've got a couple of questions, and I hope they're useful to everybody, but currently we're outside, quite a long way outside your jurisdiction area. So we're faced with moving.
Can I just start you for a minute? We don't have a jurisdiction area.
Oh,
just
sorry.
So you know. Because we work with about 20 different local authorities, so that might help that bit.
No, it's my terminology, apologies, but we're a long way to be able to travel to your school, so we are going to have to move if the school is the correct school. So currently I'm looking around at schools, and whichever school will suit, I will move to that area. We're quite flexible in being able to do that, but having researched, having talked, having looked, and having been through the battles that you talked about earlier with the local authority, and having to engage lawyers to get my son into the school that he's in now, obviously I want to make it as painless as possible this time, and I know there's no guarantee that will be, I know that. But I'm really unsure about the process of how to do that, because to come to the local authority to say, look, I'm thinking of this school, I first need to know that your school is a fit and that my child is a fit. To do that is really, really difficult. And apologies, I had to slip out for 10 minutes, so I might have missed this, but I'm not sure how academic they have to be or what level they have to be at. And it's how to gauge all that to be able to make those steps, to then be able to, you know, it's sort of chicken and egg thing all the time. And I'm finding that really, really difficult. And my child is currently in mainstream independent, is really, really happy. But going forward, we'll need special. That's been agreed with the current local authority because of processing difficulties. I'm not sure how to gauge the academic levels of schools that I'm talking to, because how do I do that with you? To be
yeah, we could be really quite straightforward with that one. Our young people are of the cognitive ability range that you'd see in a mainstream school, so down to entry level. So we're not moderate and severe learning difficulties. We're of the ability where what you'd see in a mainstream school. So the top of a mainstream school, right down to the bottom of a mainstream school, which is entry level, level 1 type of qualifications. So I think there's a few other bits you sort of picked up on there, and it's a bit of a minefield, but we are fortnightly boarding. So some of our young people come on a Monday, stay a weekend, and then they return the Friday after. Lots of families don't, and I've got children of my own, don't like the idea of the boarding. I would say out of the 28 or so who are residential and the remainder being day students, I'd say 90% of them would love to be boarders, residential students. Boarders is the wrong word because it's nothing like your boarding school. It's ensuite bathrooms, it's bedrooms, it's parents nipping in and out, it's going home on a Wednesday sometimes, it's going home every weekend. It's obviously the local authority are paying for a provision, so you have to be respectful to use it to a certain degree. But it's further away from your sort of typical image of what a boarding school would be, and it's the opposite of that. So I would, Chris, would you agree?
Absolutely. I think that, as you said there, Rob, I think there's a number of our students who've come to Swaycliffe on a day placements, and they've looked to change that because they want to the the residential facilities are fantastic, but in addition to that, they want to engage in the extended school day and the waking day curriculum because they can see the advantages of that, particularly as they go forward towards adulthood. So yeah, I think if you are living a distance from the school, I think that residential provision, as difficult as that might seem, I think would be definitely an option worth exploring.
Yeah, it's not that we're moving for the school. We are moving down south anyway. So where we move will be largely dictated by.
I think with this one, Steph, it might be one where you send us in the information that you do have.
Yeah,
and then we
think so.
We can review that and give you a sense of whether or not we feel that this is that your son would benefit from the approach that we use.
Steph, also the local authority you're currently in hold the education, health and care plan, and in some ways you might have a double battle on your hands here because they may need to agree your next placement, and then when you move to a different area, that will then be transferred to another local authority, and then you'll potentially have the battle again of getting the second local authority to accept
and that's why it's so incredibly hard. But if you don't do that, you're faced as a parent of a special child of not being able to move your life, you're not being able to change your life. And I think that it's a bit of a travesty really, but I think we've just been through the reassessment process for precisely this reason, that everything needed updating, but it's also with the view to looking at special schools. And that in itself is proving really, really difficult because you obviously you want the EHCP to reflect his needs, but also reflect the kind of school that he needs to be in. And that's incredibly difficult, particularly as he's currently in mainstream and we're trying to future-proof it really for a special. And the whole process is frying my brain really, to be quite honest.
We have every sympathy with families because it is an immensely complex thing, and for all the reasons you've talked about. And we sometimes talk with local authorities about working with a draft plan to start off with, because inevitably we want to see how the young person responds in our environment, and that's impossible to predict before they come. The EHCP, if it is finalised before we come, it will give us a lot of information that will be very, very helpful from the current context, and we can extrapolate, think what might that look like in our environment. And there may be things in there we go, actually, if that's the case, we might not be the best place, or that would not be an issue for us here because of how we operate. So we can have a discussion around that document, but having a draft plan is also fine, so long as the local authority is happy to finalise it once the placement has started and we're all happy.
Because I think the thing that is difficult with the HCP is that it's supposed to be enforceable. Everything that's in there is supposed to be enforceable. So in putting something in there, you could effectively be ruling out a school that would actually be right for him, even, and and also from your point of view, how important is the actual EHCP document compared to the reports that back it up?
I think all of that information gives us a good reflection on whether that young person can respond to our environment and be successful. Still, I think, absolutely send us everything you've got. Don't hold that back, because like you said, it's that transparency at the beginning and us being able to work together in looking at those things. I think sometimes when a young person joins us, there's some things in the education, health and care plan which we don't need to do here. Does that make sense? Because it's if you weren't in this special environment and you weren't in 6 to a class with 2 adults and you weren't doing what we were doing, then you would need a one-to-one with you all day, or you would need to work in a different way. And actually, it's, again, I keep saying these words, but it's people responding to that environment it can look a bit different. And sometimes we need to make sure that those things are still reflected in the education, health and care plan, because if they weren't with us, then they would need the young people would need that provision. Does that make sense? But it
makes perfect sense. It's the conversation I've just been having with the local authority that there were some very specific things in there using specific techniques. And I was saying, well, surely though a special school would have their ways of doing those things. And if you specify a technique, does it then make it difficult for them because they have to use that technique?
I think one of the things that we always talk to parents about all the way through is that's not something we do. This is what we do instead. And it's having that understanding that if they say everything's got to be done in yellow biro and we go, no, we only use purple biros, then we agree that we'll do with the purple biros, because I think it's making a sort of sensible accommodations around what are the presenting needs as we see them, what are we putting in place to address them.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much for your answers. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just going to have to bow out for a bit because I'm not going to play with my kettle. I'm just going to have a lie down. I'll catch you all later, and thanks very much for joining. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Sorry, just to explain to everyone, sorry, Kieran's got very bad sciatica in his leg, so he's struggling a bit today, so I do apologise. Okay, is it Emma next, Dean?
Emma's next.
Emma.
Hi there. I was just wondering whether you have many students with a sort of a PDA profile, or at least with sort of fairly significant PDA traits.
Emma, so I think the approach that we have at school, I think first of all, PDA is not an area of expertise that we have at Swaycliffe, and I think our approach doesn't support students who do present with a PDA profile. I think that there's other schools who are experts at working with students with that profile, but that's not us. And the way we're set up doesn't support students with those needs. What I can do is, though, I can, if you get in touch with us, I can give you some information around schools who it may be worth you sort of inquiring in a little bit more detail, because we know that having worked with them previously, or heard testimony of them previously, they might be worth looking at.
Okay, that would be amazing. Thank you, because it's really difficult to find. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Chris.
Hi, I'm actually Lorna. It's my husband's iPad. So it's slightly linked to what Steph was talking about a minute ago. My son is currently in specialist provision, and I kind of spent the last few months getting EP reports and that type of thing done, because I wanted it added onto his healthcare plan. Educationally, the school isn't right for him. They're not educating him. They are focused more on life skills, really. So he is very, very behind, although he has got average cognitive ability. And I wondered if that's something that you would be able to help with.
Yeah, I think absolutely, Lorna. I think that when the information comes into me and I read through it, I think it would be expected in a lot of occasions that the students who would be coming to us are maybe a little bit behind in their learning because of some of the challenges that they've faced previously. But I think the thing that I'm trying to get a sense of is, in this environment, will this particular student, work with us? Will they be motivated to learn in the classroom? Yeah. And will they, we can put in lots of additional support to try and, help them make that progress and accelerated progress as well, hopefully. And if they're willing to work with us, then I think that wouldn't be a concern.
So our Key Stage 3 curriculum is quite a primary based model, and that would include English, maths, going to science, computing. Do you see what I mean? It's not a life skills wholly curriculum. There is an academic.
The school he's in has kind of changed focus. When he first went, we were told that he'd be able to do GCSEs and everything else. And they've been taken over by a different trust, and they're going down the life skills route. So since he was 8, they've been doing employability classes and things like that. And yet his handwriting, they haven't really helped with OT about his handwriting, and it's a long list. Hence why he needs to move, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Rob sort of touched on it previously. I think that within the school, students' ability level, whatever they can achieve, we'll work with them to achieve that, and if that, I think the majority of our students, when they go into Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5, the majority of our students will be working towards GCSEs. We've got students who go on and work towards their A levels. But again, as Rob says, we've also got students who are working towards functional skills and entry-level qualifications. But whatever they can achieve, we'll work with them to help them.
I mean, we've had in the previous years, it's not every year, but we've had a number of students who have been particularly strong in some academic areas going off to university. So we've had someone to York University. We actually had somebody who was absolutely fixated on chemistry and they got themselves into Oxford University. Do you see what I mean? But it's the other end as well, where we do, and we were able to accommodate that by working with the local sixth form. They actually stood up on their very last day and said, I could always do the academic bit, but everyone hated me. I didn't know how to make friends. I didn't know how to talk to anybody. I didn't know how to do any of that. And this is what this school has been about for me. It hasn't been about, it's been about the other 3 Ys. Do you see what I mean? And actually, I was always able to do that bit. So their needs were as great as all the other students, apart from they were just good at chemistry. Do you see what I mean? So that wasn't the bit there. So I think we're not a hothouse for university entry. We're not. It's about hopefully preparing a young person to be ready for, you know,
reaching their potential,
wherever that would fall within what you'd see in years 7 to 11 in a normal mainstream secondary school, with some of the young people working, like Chris said, on the entry level and the level 1 qualifications, up to some young people performing very well in their GCSEs. And that's the sort of range of what we do, with all the therapeutic support and universal provision and the independence in all part of that. And we do things quite differently. It's not about doing all your GCSEs at 16. It's about leaving with the qualifications that you need at the right level at 19. Do you see what I mean? And that might be that somebody needs an entry level in maths, an entry level in English, and they need this, and they've got a vocational course in car mechanics. It might be somebody else who needs 5 Cs at GCSEs because they want to get onto that level 3 course. And it might be somebody who needs 3 A levels because they're aspiring to do a university course. Do you see what I mean? But that's all only possible with all those communication skills, self-management skills and independent skills, which get brought alongside.
Yeah, because the issue that we've really got at the moment is we're in Northants and they're about a year behind on signing off on updates on healthcare plans. So they signed his off in August and he's due a new one now. So his healthcare plan really doesn't reflect him at all, hence the additional. So if I was to go through my local authority, they would presumably just send you the healthcare plan, which wouldn't really help. So would I send you the additional information or do I send it to the local authority first?
Yeah, I think that the information that comes into us is quite critical in that, I think someone mentioned it before, we want that, in order for us to make a good judgment, we need the information to reflect the needs of the student.
Yeah.
So I think that working with the local authority and making sure that that plan is up to date as possible is key. But as Kieran said as well, if everyone's happy with the draft plan, we'd be happy to look at that as well.
Right.
Yeah, I think if the information doesn't reflect the young person through this process, we're going to meet the young person and we're going to spend some time with the young person through the assessment and through the pre-assessment visits and things like that. So it makes sense that we have the information that sits alongside that most reflects that person.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, quite often I have discussions with parents. I've maybe had discussion before the information comes in. So I've spoken to the parent, then the information comes in, and then I go through the information, and based on what we receive, we wouldn't be in a position to confidently move forward. And then I'll maybe speak to the parent and they'll say, yeah, but this doesn't reflect what they're like now. It's like, well, what we would need in that case is professional reports, which are really sort of strongly saying, you know, and making it clear that actually things have maybe moved on, and you know, there's a, you know, it's moved forward in a positive direction. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Got Sam, please. Sam.
Hi, thanks. My son is year 5 in mainstream and he has an EHCP with 32.5 hours support. So he's fully supported in school. Obviously, I know that's not going to be unique to the boys that you have coming in, but I'm just sort of wondering how boys cope with going from, I know obviously they're moving into smaller classes, but how you see them coping from that reliance on having that person sitting next to them to then not having it when they move into the school.
Yeah, I can.
Chris,
I think that reading through that information is going to be a key starting point to that, and because it would definitely be something that if I was reading through it and, you know, and it's saying in there that they need one-to-one support, that's key to their provision, it would be a concern, because, you know, we are moving away from that, and it's just getting a sense of to what extent is that needed just in a mainstream environment, or the setting they're in currently, and to what extent would that be sort of that need be reduced within our environment. So again, that's just part of the sort of the judgments that we would be making. And sometimes, you know, I'll speak to parents and they'll say, no, you absolutely need to one-to-one support. So that's not an approach. None of the 72 students who we've got at the minute have one-to-one support. We've got different reasons for that. But fundamentally, what we want is for the students who are here to be able to integrate naturally into, you know, the cohort and have those experiences that we would want for everyone in school, you know, where they're fully part of the lessons and they're fully part of break time. And we think that a one-to-one support doesn't sort of help provide that experience for them. And they might not be integrated into the setting they're in now, but if they came here with one-to-one support, it would be a very similar experience for them. So I think it would just be judging the extent to which that support's needed.
I suppose it's a little bit like Kieran said, we may approach that supporting young people in a different way, and it might not be having an adult with that young person. We've got a lot of other things that go on to support young people so that they can access the breaks and the lessons, but it isn't having someone sat with them.
And I think it's very different when you've got a group of 6 and 2 adults. That's already quite an intense dynamic. Sometimes our students don't need a teacher and 6 LSA sat with the students. So I mean, it's not an environment where a young person is trying to manage maybe in a class of 31, 32 with a teacher and LSA, and then that's why they need that individual support. It's because, you know, it's all set.
I
And
think that's the reason why he needs the support, is because he's in such a big class and to deal with the sensory issues and keeping on task and the focus. And obviously a smaller class would help that.
Like a number of our students, Sam, have come from that sort of environment. I go out to primary schools and, you know, other provisions as well. And quite often what I'd expect to see a student who's going to sort of, you know, the profile of student who, you know, responds well to our environment. If I was to go into a classroom, what I'd expect to see is that young person working probably one-to-one with a member of staff, sort of at the back of the classroom. They've got their own desk. That's the sort of setup that I would quite often see if I go to visit students, you know, as part of the referrals process. So, and I think that a number of the students who are in our school, that was them previously, but I think that for those students, they've adapted well, and it's been the best thing. It's been the best thing for them, you know, coming into this specialist environment where those barriers to learning are reduced, the sensory demands are reduced, the social demands are reduced to an extent, not completely, but to an extent, and then they're able to make progress from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've got anyone else said, Dean?
We've got Crosby again. Sorry, I can't remember her name.
Anne. It's Anne.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to check everyone else had had a chance because I'm conscious I had another question, but if you've gone full circle, that's fine. I'm in Oxfordshire, and I seem to be experiencing problems with Oxfordshire. I'm well acquainted with them because I have another son in a special school and I've gone through 7 annual reviews with him, so I'm used to going up against them every year, and he's had to change school twice. This is for my younger son, and he's currently in mainstream. I am running into a significant difficulty with Oxfordshire's availability of SEN officers because we live in the Vale. So I think they're down to about 2. And I wondered, it's causing a logjam. And because we can't, they allocate you based on where you live. So in terms of where you live in Oxfordshire, that's your SEN officer. Whereas I know you work with Claire Morris, who's not my SEN officer. So we haven't got one. So I've gone through the annual review process this year. Everything's been updated, fantastic, but a SEN officer didn't attend. And we're looking for a key stage 3 entry, and that's causing me a massive problem. And I don't know how to overcome that. And I just wondered if the school was just having issues.
I don't. Very difficult. We don't want to
because you're Oxfordshire. No, I know you don't.
I don't want to badmouth Oxfordshire, but I think
they've had an exodus.
Please read between the lines here. I think the local authority are under incredible amounts of pressure. Oxfordshire looking at a £300 million deficit. We've had meetings where they've met with us and talked about our provision and what we could do to support that. I think we're very ethical with Oxfordshire, and we don't over-empower young people that we don't think need the provision, and we work with them. I think they're under an enormous strain, and I agree with everything you've said. And it feels that potentially some of the SEN officers are, and I've got to be very careful what I say now, are very much put in the middle, and then the decision makers, and that's become a bit more challenging for them as well. So I think we are fully understanding. You know, we work with Claire, we work with Gaynor, they're very supportive of the school. We work really, really well with them, but I think it's looking like it's under an awful amount of strain, and yes, we feel your pain.
It's certainly delaying matters. We don't even have a SEN officer. I haven't had anybody turn up for nearly 12 months, which is ridiculous. So I don't know if anybody else is in Oxfordshire feeling the same pain, but it doesn't seem to be getting resolved. Anyway, yeah, I think you've confirmed. I under a really random question now, only because of experience with previous special schools. Are there any plans in the future, based on what is happening in funding and such like, to change your boarding provision?
In what way to change it?
Well, you go from, because there's been recruitment issues across care, education, everybody's experiencing, he's shaking his head, that's nice to see. I've had to change my other son's school because of the boarding provision. They went from fortnightly to weekly because they couldn't get care staff to work over the weekends. So I'm asking because it was an absolute nightmare.
So we're currently fully staffed.
Yep.
We've got
So this is a retention question on your staff, really.
Yeah, retention goes. Yeah, we've got a gap for because you can see the adverts out there for Key Stage 3 teacher at the moment, but that's somebody who's going off for a promotion, which we haven't got internally, and they don't really want to go, but people's good career progression, that's part of what we're about as a school as well, to share good people, share good practice. I think our care team are fully staffed.
Yeah, I mean, I think our residential team are sort of very high quality staff. Lots of them have been here for a very long time. We invest a lot in training for them. So we sort of talk about the care profession, but I think we see it more than that. They're highly skilled individuals, and they want to stay working for us because of the environment. They can see that you know, the work that they do has a huge impact with the young people. So we don't struggle hugely with recruitment and retention because people want to stay when they're here. And we're very well known for being a high quality provision that people want to work at. So we've had struggles here and there, but actually when you kind of listen to the care sector and actually other jobs that we've got within the school, I think we've been very, very lucky. And that's to do with our reputation, I think.
So the strategic plan is to stay as you are, modifying in accordance with
the strategic. We are not immune to outside forces and outside SEN green papers and all those things, but our residential provision is going strong at the moment. We are recruiting. You know, we are recruiting for residential students the September after, or looking at the placements there. Yes, but who knows what's down the line or what's around the corner.
I know there are no guarantees. I know it does seem a strange question, but it was a horrendous experience for my other son, whose boarding provision had to get changed as a result.
I think we talk about being a double outstanding school, and the fact that if there's 28 places for residential school in the whole country, we'd like to think we're in a shout for the young people that we work with. Do you see what I mean? And people would want to come to us. That's our sort of thinking behind it.
And there's huge value in the residential part of what we do, and we see that as very, very important. So we're absolutely focused on it.
Super, thanks very much.
And it also just goes back to that thing where we are a charity in the true sense of the word, and you know, it's not the commercial pressure that maybe some of these other schools have, where they need a certain return off it. Do you see what I mean? If we can make it work financially, do you know what I mean, as a charity, then that's something we really
the school was did have a significant change, so I understand why it happened, but the consequence and then trying to find alternative places is catastrophic, as I'm sure you understand. So it's on my list of questions now for every school I look at. Are you going to change in 9 months? Thank you.
We hope not.
You hope not. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions in? Brilliant. Steph, you got a question there?
Sorry, yeah, it's a really quick one, based on what just went before. You said that you work with 4 local authorities, and clearly people have problems with Oxfordshire, which I'd also heard before. Are there any, and you can do it in code however you like, but are there any that are better of the ones that you deal with? Are there any that are more positive?
We work with 21 local authorities because we have young people. Someone's coming from Sheffield, and from the residential side of things. I think
from the day side of things, the ones that are
we couldn't say really. They're all. Do you see what I mean? Sometimes local authorities work really well with families and their place. Other times, it's really tricky for people. Do you see what I mean? There doesn't seem to be any science to it, but unfortunately, the people who shout the loudest normally get the most. Do you see what I mean? And that's not essentially very fair, but it's the resilience and the ability to sort of really plough through with that process it's really, really important. And I think we do sometimes have some families that they get an alternative offer, they really want us, but they get offered something else, and they say, actually, I'm just going to take that because I'm all right with that. Do you see what I mean? And other people are really driven to get what they really feel is right and what they really think, So, and then sometimes, like I said, in those three sort of strands of the local authority requesting it, the local authority willing to work with people, and the local authority digging their heels in, I think there isn't any particular pattern with any local authority of how that is. Do you see what I mean? So, when we have had periods of time where certain local authorities, 5 or 6 years ago, Bucks placed really heavily with us, and then they had a bit of a change of strategy, and that changes, but you don't know that strategy is changing, and you don't know what's going on. It's really hard to predict it. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
Thank you. Okay.
We've got Al.
Al,
yeah, just following up on what's just been said now. How do you deal with the fact that obviously this it's a bit of a battle, it's quite drawn out. Do you get the situation where a local authority says yes and then you don't have any places left? How does that sort of work itself out?
We have Chris, sorry.
Yeah, I think that what we'd always do, Al, is communicate with the families. At the minute, for instance, if I look at the lower end of the school within Key Stage 2, Key Stage 3, we've probably got 2 spaces left. We're still working through a number of consultations. So if you were to get in touch with us now and you were looking for an immediate placement, we would tell you about that, and we'd let you know that this is and we'd keep you updated as that goes along. But then at the same time, if you were looking for September 2023, I'd be able to say with confidence that within that area of the school we'll have capacity. So I think that we would always be very open with you and with the local authority as well as to our capacity.
Does that not occur then? Because it does sound like this is a long process for people. So do you not get to the point where
it hasn't occurred to date, and we're obviously aware of the places that we've offered.
Yeah.
When we've offered them, and if they're going through tribunal, we try and factor that into our plans. Okay. So it hasn't actually happened to date where somebody has been offered a place and they've popped out the woodwork further down the line. We do need to be honest with people, and if this process takes a really long time, we might need to meet that young person again and redo an assessment because their mental health might be in a different place or all those types of things. But that's all things we can talk about if that is
I think a good example would be we had a student come in for an assessment visit in summer term last year. We offered a place. There's going to be a tribunal in January 2023. We'll honour that place until the end of that process.
Okay, and just obviously, you've got very, very few places, lots of people going for it. Do you offer recommendations for other schools that people might look at if you can't sort of support?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we've built up. I've got some links that I can share with parents of other providers who maybe have a range of schools who you could go and have a look. You could look through.
And I think it's worth saying is most people who fit our profile and want to come, we've been able to accommodate. Does that make sense? So whether that gets to the point in the future where we can't do that, but I think, and we did have a couple of people last summer term that could have potentially joined us in May, and they had to wait till September, which was work, and they stayed in their primary school for a bit longer and finished off there, then joined us in September. That's the sort of pinch points we've had. But yeah, we have been able to accommodate most people who it's right for the family and it's right for the school. We have been able to make sure they can join us.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think that's all the questions there. The video is on the
YouTube. We're
YouTube.
Be able to stick a link in, Dean.
We'll be able to stick a link in
Yes.
on there now. So Dean will stick a link into this chat. Please get in touch with that admissions email address. Please be a little bit patient with Chris because he has lots of things to go through, but he will be back in touch, and we hopefully look forward to working with some of you